Zach LaVine's season is over. A few days ago, the Chicago Bulls announced that he would undergo season-ending foot surgery. This would end his substandard year, featuring disappointment play, injuries, and trade rumors. But how did this happen? Last year, Zach LaVine was averaging 25 points per game. The year before that was back-to-back All-Star appearances. Now, despite being openly on the trade block, no team has taken a bite at the two-time All-Star. This is the story of how the NBA left Zach LaVine behind. Born in Seattle, Zach LaVine quickly developed into a star basketball player. He would quickly grow his game to be that of his idols, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. In his senior year of high school, LaVine was averaging 28 points per game, named an All-American, as well as Washington's Mr. Basketball. He'd be ranked as a 4-star recruit and would go on to commit to UCLA. As a Bruin, LaVine would primarily be the team's 6th man, starting in just one game. He averaged 9, 2, and 2, but his explosive dunks and athleticism gave memories to the former Bruin Russell Westbrook. His 48 made 3-pointers per game were the second most by a freshman in school history, and even though his stat line may not have been too impressive, it was enough for him to be named to the Pac-12 All-Freshman team. RIP the Pac-12. After declaring for the 2014 draft, LaVine was expected to go around the 10th pick. His most optimistic comparisons saw him as a better shooting Russell Westbrook, but LaVine was still an incredibly raw prospect. Yes, he was a terrific shooter and may have just been the most athletic player of the draft, demonstrating great speed, agility, and jumping ability, peaking at a 46.5-inch vertical. But outside of his scoring ability, scouts questioned his defense, his basketball IQ, his consistency, his passing, and his size. He was quite thin, measuring at just 6'6" and 180 pounds. LaVine was drafted at the 13th overall spot to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota was in a deep rebuild, having just traded away their longtime star Kevin Love for the number 1 overall pick Andrew Wiggins. LaVine would join Wiggins, a 21-year-old Anthony Bennett, and a 24-year-old Ricky Rubio in making of a young Minnesota Timberwolves core. As a rookie, LaVine started in half of all games, averaging 10, 3, and 3, primarily playing the point guard. He was named as a rising star and on the all-rookie second team. LaVine showed promise, especially when he played in the shooting guard position after Rubio returned. In his final stretch of the rookie season, he would average a strong 19, 5, and 5, shooting nearly 40% from 3. The following year, LaVine showed improvement across the board. He was more efficient, he scored more, and he turned the ball over less. He also had more of an opportunity to play his natural position in the 2-guard. LaVine made himself a near household name by winning one of the greatest NBA dunk contests ever against the Orlando Magic's Aaron Gordon. Minnesota also added the number 1 overall pick and Rookie of the Year Karl Anthony Towns, giving more promise to this young core. In his last season in Minnesota, LaVine's contract was extended and his minutes were notoriously increased under Tom Thibodeau. There was hopes that Tibbs would help LaVine figure it out on the defensive end, but this is something that he and the Minnesota Timberwolves as a whole struggled with. However, offensively is where LaVine took a leap. Zach averaged 19 points per night, establishing himself as one of the league's best 3-point shooters, making 2.5 per night, averaging nearly 39% from the field. This would be a then career high in 3-point percentage as he proved himself as an excellent shooter off of screens and in catch and shoot opportunities. He was also seen to be an excellent counter to Andrew Wiggins. While they could both slash on the inside, Wiggins was expected to be the better perimeter defender, with LaVine making up for it with his spacing. But Zach LaVine would only play 47 games before an ACL tear in February would rule him out for the season. There was excitement for the LaVine, Wiggins, and Cat trio. Not to mention Minnesota's struggles last season would give them another high draft pick. But it turns out his game on February 4th would be his last in Minnesota. In June, as a part of 2 teams' overhauls, he was traded to the Chicago Bulls with Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen for Jimmy Butler. The Timberwolves were looking to improve their defense and accelerate a rebuild by bringing in one of Tom Thibodeau's favorite players. Chicago, after coming off of a disappointing first-round loss to the Celtics the year prior, was looking to create a new, young core. LaVine would play just 24 games in his first game in Chicago while waiting to return from injury. That offseason, the Bulls would decide to match an offer LaVine received from Sacramento as a restricted free agent, giving him $80 million over 4 years. Chicago had just invested heavily in the 22-year-old, and it was about to pay off. In his first full season as a Bull, LaVine took the league by storm, averaging near 24-5-5. He saw a then career high in field goal percentage, free throw attempts, points, rebounds, and assists. In the most important year of his career, he flourished. 2020 saw the same development. LaVine again increased his scoring per game while increasing his efficiency. However, his defense and passing were still suspect and still two areas Bulls fans wanted to see him improve on. 2021 would be the best season of LaVine's career. He was the sixth man on a gold medal Team USA with an incredibly strong Olympic run. LaVine would have his best season from three, shooting 42% on 3.5 makes per game. He had his best averages ever at 27-5-5 and made his first All-Star appearance. He was the first Bull since Jimmy Butler in 2017 to make the game. After pushing himself into the All-Star conversation, LaVine was creeping towards being seen as one of the best shooting guards in the league, up with the likes of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Donovan Mitchell, and James Harden. The next goal for LaVine and his Bulls were to make the playoffs. 2022 would see another All-Star appearance for LaVine and similar stats across the board minus a slight scoring dip. Something often forgot was how strong the Chicago Bulls team was. In January, when point guard Lonzo Ball was healthy, the team had a narrow lead in first place in the East, but after Lonzo's knee injury, the Bulls would slip all the way down to 6th place, destined to play the reigning champion Milwaukee Bucks. The Bulls would then be eliminated in 5 games. LaVine would struggle in his only ever playoff series, averaging 19 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds with 3 turnovers per game. He would play just 4 games as a knee injury would force him to miss Game 5. While the early playoff exit may have been a disappointment, Chicago was happy with what they saw in LaVine, awarding him a 5-year, $210 million deal. There was an excitement for the Bulls as they were starting to form a new, exciting core. Over the past few seasons, the team brought in DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and the 4th overall pick, Patrick Williams, with a new coach in Billy Donovan. This one playoff appearance was supposed to be just the start for Chicago, but Chicago failed to capitalize off of their previous playoff appearance. They won just 40 games and lost in the 8th seed game in the play-in tournament. LaVine would play in 77 games, the most he has ever played in Chicago. Again, he would average an efficient 25-4-4, but this time missed out on the All-Star game. And this season, Zach struggled almost right away, and with that, the trade rumors grew. But even before the injuries, he was averaging just 25-3. By all accounts, this was his worst year since his first partial season in Chicago. He missed almost all of December and most of January with a foot injury, and with an ankle injury occurring just 7 games later. So what happened to Zach LaVine? How did the NBA leave him behind? First is injuries. By the time this season ends, LaVine will have missed almost 100 games for his career, most of that due to injury. And most of these injuries have been to his lower body and especially his knee. Any player who relies on explosion and athleticism is at risk of being crippled by these sorts of injuries. Zach LaVine has proved himself to be a great player, but the circumstances of a deep playoff run never worked out. On that, LaVine never managed to achieve the role of a top shooting guard. Once he reached his prime, he never really improved. While he definitely has had his moments as a playmaker and as a defender, it ultimately remained suspect given his pay and expectations as an all-star. And his pay is the second major reason the league has moved on from Zach LaVine. With the new collective bargaining agreement, teams are limited to effectively just 2 max contract players. LaVine having a max contract with a player option putting him through 2027 is far from ideal. Even outside of the CBA, I'd say teams are moving away from a big 3, forming themselves a duo with depth. With less max contract spots going around, no team wants to pay almost $50 million per year to someone who is just an average defender and playmaker. But on top of this, ultimately, the position that Zach LaVine plays has disintegrated, and I don't know what will be left of it when he returns. The league is shifting the shooting guard spot away from the shooting guard and more towards guys who are all around, maybe slightly smaller forwards. Guys like Jaylen Brown, Austin Reeves, Derek White, or Desmond Bane are the future of the position. I would argue Zach LaVine is in the exact same position that David Lee was in 2014. Lee, like LaVine now, was just 2 years removed from an all-star appearance when he was benched for Draymond Green, and he would never see the same playing time again. And LaVine isn't the only one falling victim to this. I would say Bradley Beal is in the exact same boat. A negative injury history, a massive contract, and a smaller player, all while not being an exceptional playmaker or defender for what he is paid. Some of the other guys that I've mentioned, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, James Harden, and even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander were all in a similar position, but those four have responded better and are all having career years playmaking wise, with most of them playing the most minutes they have ever seen at the point guard role. LaVine is an incredibly talented basketball player. He is one of the best pure bucket getters in the entire league, but teams don't want guys who are just bucket getters. They don't want to put one of their 2 max contract spots towards someone whose only elite skill is scoring. LaVine may have already played his last game as a Chicago Bull. While both parties were open to a trade, I would imagine Chicago would be more eager to dump LaVine's massive contract, especially with the emergence of Kobe White this season. This year proved that there is virtually no market for Zach LaVine. No team wants to pay that kind of money, and most teams don't want to shape a lineup revolving around a 6'5" wing who, as I said, can't defend or playmate. With a major foot surgery pending, it is also reasonable to be worried about what LaVine is going to look like coming back next season. I want Zach LaVine to succeed. He is a highlight machine who can explode for a big game any given night. But the pure bucket getting skill set he entered into the league with has suddenly, and not even entirely to his fault, become outdated. His long injury history only grows more concerning as he gets older. His massive contract is becoming more of a poison pill than what it was the guarantee of a great player. The NBA is evolving quickly, and anytime we see this philosophy shift in the NBA, there are always victims. Players caught in the crossfire. And with the shooting guard as we know it having its days numbered, Zach LaVine is poised to fall victim to NBA evolution. Guys, this is what happened to Zach LaVine, and this is how the NBA left him behind. Where do you think LaVine will end up next? Does Chicago find a suitable partner to dump his salary, or do they try to put it together next season? Does he take a step back athletically and we see him develop more into a point guard and play the similar role he was in Minnesota? If teams across the NBA decide to get rid of this type of shooting guard, who else can fall victim? If you like this video, you know what to do, but that is it for this one, and I will catch you guys later.